Anders Breivik, probably the most notorious and prolific mass shooter of all time. He killed 77 people in one killing spree. Wow. I do this episode with my man Andrew Gold from the On the Edge podcast.
He's now 42 years old. He's in prison serving time for far-right domestic terrorism. Most of you will know of him and remember the 2011 Norway attacks when he killed 8 people in a bomb in a cargo van in Oslo, as well as 69 teenagers at a summer camp, the most fatalities by a single gunman ever. Once arrested, a psychiatric team diagnosed Breivik with paranoid schizophrenia, but after this initial finding was criticised, a second evaluation concluded that he was not psychotic during the attacks, but did have narcissistic personality disorder and antisocial personality disorder.
So this episode, it has me delving into some of his backgrounds, some of his personality traits, and some of his mental disorders to see if we can at least understand how these might have combined together and contributed towards his horrific actions.
But this is madness what he did. So how can we say, okay, this isn't schizophrenia because it just is consistent?
It's not actually really about the diagnosis. It's about whether they were criminally culpable at the time. With something like schizophrenia, some people can have very intense short-term symptoms, and some people can have long-term chronic paranoid ideas that have been there for years. So it's not even about the actual idea, it's about what they were thinking at the time. So to boil it down to its very basics, if Breivik believed that if he knew what he was doing was wrong, when I'm talking about the insanity defense here, or the legal term for insanity, if he knew what he was doing was wrong, then by definition, he's not legally insane. So he might feel really justified, and he might feel that he's making a point, that he's getting an attention. He might even believe that certain segments of society would applaud him, but he still knew he was breaking the law.
Wow. Did he ever do anything before? Because it's quite a leap to go from nothing to blowing up a van and then killing 70 people. What I think it's important for us to remember, I suppose, is that people really lost their lives, didn't they? And we talk about, and to imagine the scenes is just extraordinary. I can't even begin to picture it, like him wandering around this island and just shooting people. I can't get my head to that place. I don't know.
The bits and pieces that I know, he had a very bizarre childhood. So his father wasn't really around for most of it. But despite that, his father fought for custody for Breivik when he was little. And then he just suddenly disappeared and suddenly disowned him. So on the one hand, you got this father who kind of pretends to care and then disappears out of the blue. And then his mother used to pamper him until he basically carried out his atrocities. So to me, this really must have messed with his sense of who he is, his identity. So when you form your boundaries, it's all about your feedback from your parents. So a good parent will show you emotion, show you warmth, but also tell you off when you're doing something wrong. That's just what everybody expects. You need this kind of feedback. So I think what happened with Breivik is that he struggled to have this feedback. On the one hand, he had a mum who actually doted on him, and on the other hand, he had a father who was indifferent to him. So I think he probably had really messed up, kind of polarized self-images. So part of him felt worthless and shameless, I think, whereas another big part of him felt grandiose. So I think he pushed everything. He put all his emotional eggs in the basket of feeling grandiose, and he had this massive inferiority complex of actually feeling worthless and shameful. Yeah. So what it boils down to was he out of touch of reality? Like, did he know what he was doing at the time? And I think he probably did, because to me, this does scream of narcissism. Everything about him screams of narcissism. So he believed that Europe needed to be saved from Islam, from terrorism, from radical Islam, I should say. And he believed that it was justified to be solved with violence.